Alright, well, I'm trying out a new trick for my camera here. Just been using my phone for recordings, but I feel like whenever I'm doing things, you can't really see anything. So I'm going to try this out here and see if this helps with my positioning. So, exciting thing came in the mail today. I got my crimpers. And what's nice about these crimpers that is different from the pair that I already had is these ones I bought a while ago. I actually got the ratcheting, which, it worked pretty well. But this was for, as you can see, 0.25 to 4 millimeter size wire and connectors. So these are the little connectors. They come in a little ribbon. And what you do is you put the wire inside the connector, and then you crimp or pinch the connector around the wire, and it makes a tight connection. So there's special little connectors made for all kinds of different things. And these particular set of connectors are for a PlayStation 2 controller. So this is... didn't realize I had that still. So here's the connector that I've got. Oops, gotta put it in frame. So here's the connector that I have. That's the connector coming out of there. And here is the connector that I'm planning to put on. And you can see they're about the same. Took me forever to find the right connector for these, but they are the same. So what I have to do is I'm going to desolder this. This wire is, well, as you can tell, it's pretty cooked. So I'm going to desolder this connector, which actually, just kidding, I don't have to desolder anything because I already desoldered it. I just got to push this through and take it out of the system board. And I need to remove, there we go. So this is actually good because I'd kept this together to make sure I got the color correct. So I took pictures of this already, but for the recording it's red, black, green, brown, orange, yellow, blue, and gray. But the new one that I have, oops, I'll have to solder that back on. Kind of expected it would happen anyway. Happens all the time. These rumble strips end up falling off. But I am going to see what color wire this has, because I think I have one less. So let's count them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And this one we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have one extra. And from what I've been reading, this gray one is probably the extra. But what's interesting is this wire, or this new cord bought from AliExpress, has a gray one, but no purple one. So the pinouts are definitely different on these. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to need to map and identify which wire goes to here, and I have to pretty much trace it, kind of like if you watch the video on the GameCube controller. I have to put a probe here and a probe on one of these until I get a little tone to tell me which wire goes from here all the way through and ends up here on which pin. So I'm gonna have to do that as part of my project here. But the good news is, after searching on Reddit and talking with somebody that had a lot more experience with electronics than I did out in the Ask Electronics subreddit, I was finally able to come across these connectors. Got it from DigiKey, and I've gotten a few things from them before, but not many things, but they seem to always or often have the things that I need. But what they didn't have was this. You can see these connectors are very, very tiny, and my existing crimpers, they didn't work. They were way too big, and I wasn't able to crimp them at all. So on DigiKey, a pair of these or something similar, they didn't actually have a picture, was about $1,300. And I found some of these on of course, of all places, AliExpress, where I'm finding everything for my electronics needs. I think it was like $15, or maybe it was even less. I'd have to go look. But I was able to crimp this on, no problem. So that was one of the big problems solved. I already have the connector here, so I need to pretty much take all of these connectors out. I need to crimp all of these with the new connection, and then I need to test them and see where they pin out. But then I also need to see, I need to look up some pinouts online to see which pin actually needs to go into which one of these. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, and I'm gonna turn this off while I decide what to do next. Alright, so I think I figured out my plan here, at least to begin with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bend off 7 more of these guys. Just kind of break them off like so. Need 7. And after I snap these off, I'm going to remove the old cable so I can get the plastic piece separated out, and then we'll start crimping them on. You can kind of see that process. I'm not sure if I'll record for the whole thing because it's not exactly riveting videography, but we'll give it a shot. So I've got all my little pins there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and to take these connectors apart, you can see that this is one of the weirdest things that I found, is that a lot of these connectors, the pin part usually comes out the front and you plug it into another connector. But this one, these slide into the base here, and the bottom part just sticks out the bottom, and that's what you it lets you, it's actually kind of nice. It's like a wiring harness, and it just lets you align all of these in the order that they need to go in, which is a pain in the butt if you're trying to solder them on individually, which I have done for the old Sega Genesis controllers, and it is just it's a pain in the butt. I would have killed for a wiring harness like this. But it just helps you keep them aligned, and then these obviously make a better connection when you're soldering it onto the board. So I think it's a nice idea. What I need to do to undo it, and I'm going to try to do this very carefully without snapping off these little plastic pieces here, but I essentially need to pull on this wire while lifting up the plastic tension tab. I've already done one, but man, it is not not very friendly. I feel like I need, you know what, I think I've got something smaller here. Now I'm going to try doing this without stabbing myself. That's the hard part. There we go. Much better. Yank that out. Comes out like so. And I'll do that with the next 7 pieces here. There's 6. Just gotta lift it up. And yep. Helps if I already got some tension pulling it out. There we go. Now, if I really wanted, I had a backup plan for this, where if I couldn't find the crimpers, or if I couldn't find the connectors for the wire, I was just going to solder them in bare into the motherboard, but I wanted a little challenge, apparently. I wanted to do it the right way, and I feel like this is just going to be more satisfying. And like I said, it is just a lot easier to line up the wires when you're doing it this way. So yes, ultimately probably a little bit more work overall, but I think the results are gonna speak for themselves, as they say. And this isn't going too bad here. I really think the hardest part is going to be figuring out which wire needs to go where. There's a lot of things with these PlayStation 2 controllers is there are so many different variants, and when you get into third-party controllers or cables that you've ordered from AliExpress, it's even worse. They don't follow the same standards. They don't follow the same spec document. I actually made the mistake. There it is, nice and free, open. You can kind of see the connectors in there. So that's where I'm going to stick my wire. And now this one, I think I can finally safely throw it away. I actually had to dig it out of the trash because I had to find this connector and find the crimpers. The first mistake that I made, which is what wound me up on the Ask Electronics board on Reddit, was I was using a PlayStation 1 as my reference. And those wires, while very, very similar, are also very different. And so I had a connector, and these were totally different than what I needed for the motherboard. So that was definitely a learning experience. So what I'm going to probably do is I'm not going to do all of these on camera. I am just going to place one of them. And what I'm going to do first, so these are very tiny and somewhat challenging to work with, so I'm glad I don't do this often. But I will set this essentially bottom side up, and we will go in. Oh, just kidding. I always have to rethink how I do this. Somehow I did this on my lunch, like first try, and didn't have any issues whatsoever, and now I'm struggling. It's probably the pressure of everybody watching. There we go. So let's see if I can get a visual there. Oh, I took it out one moment. I think it was stuck to my fingers, actually. Then I'll get a good view for you. All right, so there it is in there. You see there's only a little bit pinching it, but next thing we do is we insert the wire into, this is where the my other crimper having the ratchet set actually helped quite a bit more. Let's see if I can do this while you can see it. So the wire's in the crimper now, or in the joint, and I squeezed it together. So next thing I'm going to do is do it to the top part here. And just squeeze that tight. There we go. We got two of them. So, two connectors there. I'm going to do that for the rest of these wires. I'm going to turn off the camera, and when I come back, hopefully I won't have messed anything up. Whee! Alright, coming back to do the last two. I've so far only had one casualty. The rest of them have gone really, really well. So we'll just go through these last few with you too, and you can see how I've kind of gotten it into a system. So I've got it in there, and insert the wire and squeeze, and then just go right back in to the same area. I'll see if I can get that close up. You can see, just squeeze it tight, and look how beautiful that looks. These are actually working out really well. I was kind of expecting, oh, I got these from AliExpress and they're going to be super cheap and not really work that well, but I've been so impressed by the quality of stuff that I've gotten from them so far. I've really only had one thing I've had to, or maybe a couple things I've had to return. Where the heck did that go? If only you guys could talk back in the video and point out to me where I just lost that little connector. Dang it. Alright, well, almost went well. Alright, we'll pause here and see if I can find it, and I'll come back. Oh, never mind. Got it. For any of those that are watching the Game Boy refurb, I have yet to find that screw, by the way. That one missing screw, and well, I have yet to find it, but I don't think I really need it. Okay, last one here. Got that nice and tight, and then we'll want to make sure we don't get those in there. Don't want to undo all my hard work so far. All right, last one. So now the question becomes, in what order do we insert these into the connector? Once I do so, I'll be able to solder it onto the board, no problem. So that'll be fun. And what's nice is if I ever have to buy another one of the buy like a replacement cable for a PS2, I've got a whole box or a whole bag of these. I think I got like, is that the quantity? Yeah, I got 200. Wasted one so far, so I can do a whole bunch more controllers after that. The other thing that I've got to do, so this is the, I had thought about scrapping this controller, but after I've gotten into so many projects here, I feel so bad. I would feel terrible to scrap this project. So I'm just going to show you here what I got that I'm working with. So we got all the buttons and hardware and everything. That's the shell, obviously, and it's a H model. This model number is pretty much the same for all the other PlayStation controllers. But what's interesting about this is how the buttons are pressed. So there's not, in most of the controllers that I've taken apart, or in like the Game Boy, it's right on the motherboard, or right on the system board. There's these little pads that are separated, and similar technology like this, the silicone pad, when you press down those black buttons or black spots, form the connection between those pads, and that's what sends the signal that you press the button. So with PlayStation 2 controllers, they have, I was actually talking to somebody recently, this is very similar to like if you were to break open a cheap keyboard, just a regular USB keyboard, you would probably find something exactly like this in there. And so to get this one off, I actually used a heat gun, probably a little too vigorously, but I had to take this off. This is actually how it connects to the motherboard. So to use a heat gun, I pulled this off, but what I'm going to do next is I've got some replacement ones from AliExpress, of course, that I'm going to solder back onto here, and that's going to be a neat experiment because I actually have something that I've never used before, but I've heard and seen good things. This is, what do they actually call it? Lead-free warming paste. I don't know if I would call it warming paste. Solder paste. So what I can do is instead of using a soldering iron and actual solder, like I've got here, solid solder wire, I can use this to essentially put a bead. I have to clean this all off, but I'm going to put a bead across here, place the connector over it, and then use a heat gun, and it just will solder itself on. So I don't have to do any soldering, which is nice for a lot of these really intricate connectors. Worst comes to worst, if it doesn't work, well, I can always just solder it on like normal. But I've got to solder that piece on, which will then let me put on the new membrane. So this is the new one, and once we got our connector on there, it's going to sit on here. This goes through here, and I kind of have to assemble it onto this piece. And the motherboard goes in the back like so. This flips over the side and inserts into the little connector. And then our wire that we just created or just crimped is going to go in right here. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wires, and I've got 8 wires on my coming out of my controller cable. So that's nice. I actually had 9, I think, on this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can't see me counting, but that's 9. So I'm actually going to be 1 short, but that's okay. I'm just going to fill up the first 9 slots here, and then it should, we'll solder it right on, just like right here. And that was why I had dry fitted it before with the other wire to make sure that this fits. Because again, those standards with those PS2 controllers, Some of them have 9, some of them have 8, some of them have 18 pins here, some of them have 19 pins. These are not the same membranes that are used in all of them. I actually have got, let's see up here, I've got, this is one style, this is another style, this is yet another style of membranes. And this one's weird because it just makes a connection with tension. It just presses it tight. And then there was a fourth style that I found that luckily I've only seen once, which has a sandwich of membranes. And that you can't find the secondary pieces anymore. So I got really lucky on that one that I was able to put it together and get it working. So that's pretty much all I'm going to do tonight. But I'll turn the camera off and show you guys some. I'm going to turn on another video and show you guys some of the other new toys that I got and plans that I'm going to have in the future. So stay tuned. Well, I decided to come back for more. It was going to bug me if I went to bed without at least documenting which pins this controller went to. So I've got my handy dandy alligator clip resting on pin number, you know what, we're just going to call this 1. Actually, no, we're going to call it 8. Because if I've learned anything, it's usually backwards from what you're thinking when you're looking at the male side. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's only 8 pins. It goes from left to right, but that's if you're looking at it from this perspective as you're plugging it into the system. So we're looking at pin 8. We got it connected to my multimeter here, which I've got set to continuity. And for those of you who don't know, makes a tone if you make the connection electrically. So what I'm going to do now that I've got my alligator clip is we're going to go through each one of these until we find the one that tones, and that'll tell us which pin 8 is. So brown is pin 8, and then we undo this, move to pin number 7, which will, I'm going to test brown again just to make sure I don't have any. Oh. I'm going to test all of them to make sure there's no shorts. So orange is 7. I'm going to remove this and go to number 6. It's kind of a pain in the butt to do with it being so tight in there, but it's working pretty well. Make sure brown and orange don't test. Alright, silver is number 6. Or, I'm sorry, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I guess I was right. Okay. So number 5, we'll say green. Yellow? Blue? Black? Okay. So 5 is black. 4 is red. 3 is going to be yellow. And 2 is blue. And 1 is green. Alright, well, I've got the pin out of them. Now what I need to do is look through the documentation online that I've been able to find and figure out which pin here goes to where on the motherboard where we're going to connect this. So I also have to keep in mind that I have 9 pins on this connector, but only 8 here. So I have to make sure that whichever side I start from, I just stay flush. Whether I start from this left side, which I think it will, because if I start there, if I start on the left, it actually seems to be okay either way, but I think that fits a little bit better. So we're going to start from we're going to start. So this is the back, this is the front, and this is the top. So we're going to start on this side and work our way over this way. So I'm going to leave that face up, facing this way. I'll leave the motherboard there to try to kind of keep my memory where it's going to fit. In fact, that is how it's going to go. So we're going to come in, put our pins in this way, based on whatever I find this pin out to be. I've got all the colors, and yeah, we'll go from there. Well, after one more casualty, which was the black wire, I was able to get everything slotted into the connector. One of them's sliding back out, and of course it's this black connector, which I had to recrimp. The wire itself actually had snapped off. These really tiny wires can be very fragile sometimes, so you gotta be careful with them. But got them all inserted, and I was impressed and pleasantly so to find out that the colors actually matched up. So that's pretty cool. So now I should be able to plug this straight back in, and then when I'm ready I can solder them in. But this one wire is not wanting to cooperate. It's the one challenge of having them all in one connector, is they all gotta go in at the same time. Oh, there we go. So should be all our wires are connected. I'm not going to pull on them too hard. Black. Is that still in there? Yep, that's still in there. And yeah, I think we're in good shape. So next thing I need to oh, I spoke too soon. No, well, let's get this in here again. Hey, look at that. It went even easier that time. I'm going to get this a little bit closer so that I don't keep pulling it off. But I'm also going to try to like bend this pin over. Try to keep some tension in there. Alright. Well, that's there. I didn't really feel like soldering tonight, but you know what? I also don't feel like placing that again. So you know what? We're going to solder down. This will be our last act of the night. And I'm actually going to remove this blue silicone here. That's what I've been using for trying to keep things nice, because when I do soldering, you can see there's some stuff all over there. And when I was working on the Game Boy earlier, I really didn't want to scratch up any of the glass. So I put that down instead. And it worked out pretty nicely. But what I need to do is I think I need to use some helping hand here. And we're going to solder one end on. Make sure I'm not crimping the wires or anything. Okay. Once I solder one end, we should be able to take the helping hand off. And what I do need is some solder or some flux, which I have a flux pen, and I am not a fan of this. One of the things I don't like is that I have to push down really hard on the unit to get it to even come out, and then it's very, very liquidy. So I had, and that's all over my hands too. Yeah, it's probably not good for me either. But I had some flux paste, which actually worked out really, really well, and it recently ran out on me. So I have some more on order, but until then, I guess this is what we're stuck with. I'll turn on my fume hood. This stuff really, I hate this flux. Take off the helping hand now. Oh, gosh, yes it is. Ugh. Some alcohol wipe here. It's just probably filled with all kinds of carcinogens and yucky stuff. Pro tip, wash your hands after you're done soldering. Alright. I'm going to finish this up here. Okay. Turn on my microscope here. And, let's see. Take a look at our soldering joints. Yeah, see, I don't like how they're balls, but the other thing is, I don't know if there's a way around that because the it didn't really I wasn't able to push the connectors through that much, but in the grand scheme of things, I think it looks fine. And as long as it forms the connection, which most certainly does, it's definitely on there. I'm fine with it. Oh, a little bit of hole right there. And this is what the flux is supposed to help with this. Flux helps it flow better. Essentially you add heat and the flux forces or helps the solder join to the metal surfaces that it's supposed to join to. So, not terribly happy with those connections. Once I get my solder paste, looking at this on my microscope, and I'm able to see much clearer. I'm looking through. You can see I've actually got the space between that I'm able to see. Love it. So, alright. Well, that's done there. Next thing I need to do, which I might try doing while we're here. This is my least favorite thing to do, is desoldering. And especially when it comes to using things like solder wick. I don't know why. I've never had good luck with this stuff. Maybe I've just not found the right solder wick, but this stuff never ended up with. What this is supposed to do is it's a braided copper, and it's supposed to have flux built into it. What we're supposed to be able to do, and it's possible that I just might not have the best tip on, but it's supposed to clean the solder up off of here. I might need some helping hands with this too. One thing I'm going to try, we're going to put some additional flux here. That can help clean it up too, but I want that all the way cleaned up. I really don't want any solder on there. And that's my one skill that I'm one of. That's one of the skills, but probably it's my, that's the one that I need to improve the most, is this right here. Is from the videos you watch. Maybe I'm just not getting the right solder wick, but it is supposed to be much easier. Now see there, I've actually soldered it to the board. One thing I have to actually turn up my soldering iron here. It's a little bit hotter. Let's see if this does it. One thing you don't want to do, you really don't want to rip up these solder pads, or these trace pads. Now, counterintuitively, to help the soldering iron make more of a connection, you actually have to use solder to get the solder out. Oh, you know what? That's working. Look at that. Wow. Okay. Alright. Looking pretty good. I'm just going to cut this piece up and do one more pass. First thing I learned about using the solder wick is you don't want to hold it, because copper is very conducive, or very conductive. Oh yeah, okay. Well, it's looking really good. I think we're in good shape. So I turned it up from 680 Fahrenheit, from 680 to 760, and that is what finally gave me the ability to desolder that, or to use the solder wick. And look, that looks really good. Oh, here, you know what? What am I use? Use my handy dandy microscope here. Focus in. Oops. Forgot that I'm using the helping hands. So it looks a little dirty around there, and hopefully I didn't burn it, but what I'm going to do, clean this off. I'm actually going to take my alcohol swabs, get some alcohol on it, we're going to see if we can clean that up a little bit. So if there's any corrosion, ooh, down the phone goes. There we go. Oh yeah, that is looking really good. Very, very happy with this. I'm glad we did this. I say we like you're here, but look at that. That looks really, really nice. So what I'm going to be able to do is I'm actually going to try to use that that solder paste again and see if it works. So I'm not supposed to have to use any solder or any flux for this stuff. I'm supposed to be able to just lay a bead right across there, put the connector down, apply some heat from a heat gun, and off to the races. So, not doing that right now. I think I'm done for the night. I've had, I think enough success. It's not always the case. So I'm going to quit while I'm ahead, and we'll see you next time. Alright, well, we're back with PlayStation 2 controller that we soldered last night. Soldered the controller cable back onto. And what I want to try to do today is solder on the connector for the membrane. And I got two variations, one that's 18 pin, one that's 19 pin. And I'm going to see which one actually fits. This is the 18 pin. I think. Actually, it says both on the packaging. But we're going to see how this lines up here. Well, got it on the first try. Look at that. Okay, so what we're going to do is it's going to be a little bit of an experiment. Because I've got my solder paste that I've never used before. And I've got it installed in my little extruder. And this is to help so that I don't have to push the plunger down. I just have to press this part down right here, and it should squeeze it out, so I don't have to use my thumb and push really hard down on the plunger. So we're going to try that out and see how this works. This is my first time trying it. What I'm supposed to do is put a bead of solder paste right across here, and we're going to see how well this stuff works, if it even pushes any through. One thing I'm not sure is if this extruder might be a little too big for this. Try pulling it out. I may end up having to use my thumb after all. Of course, it's going to be a big pain in the butt to get out, isn't it? Alright, I'm going to wrestle with this thing. We'll be back. Well, I suppose I should have tested the extruder size before I tried to put this into it, because it was too wide for the barrel of this syringe. So, essentially, this thing here, if I push the button, it pushes this plunger down, and that plunger is supposed to go in there, but it's just barely too wide. So, plan B, or probably should have been plan A, but we're going to try this out and see how it works. See if I can get some focus on that. Oh, there, I can see it coming out of, oops. Nice even bead. Whoa, 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 whoa. That is coming out too heavy there. Okay. Come on. There we go. So, we'll put the cap back on. Now, what we need to do is gently place this on top and try to line it up. Just like so. Okay. I'm actually going to push this back a little bit so that it's exactly over the white rectangle. Okay. That should do it, as far as I'm aware. Now the next thing is, I've actually got to put the hot air on it. So I've got my adapter here. I've switched this. This is my smaller connector. I actually may look to see if I have an even smaller one. So I don't want to do what I did last time, which when I took the old connector off, and I ended up melting it. And it looks like that's the smallest connector I have, but that's okay. We'll work with what we got. I think that should be good enough, but I think what I'm going to need to do is turn the temperature down a little bit. So this solder paste says that it's got a melting point of 138 Celsius. And my hot air station does Celsius, but I don't remember how to switch it over to it. There's not like a quick and easy flip of the switch to get it over to Celsius. So I'm going to pause real quick, do a calculation on my phone, and see what that is in Fahrenheit. We'll be back to put it on. All right, we've got our measurement. I need to put it on 280 degrees Fahrenheit is 138 degrees Celsius. So 280, actually 280.4, but I can't get that granular on my station. So we've got the hot air station set. Well, it actually goes to sleep if you... There we go. Starting up. And I've got the little bit of air. So we're going to see how this works here. So it's got to come up to temperature. Oh, it's already starting to melt. It's already starting to melt. We'll see how this does. We're going to actually turn it up to 290 and see because this stuff should be dissolving and pretty much dissipating to look exactly like solder. Not really seeing it though. We're going to go up to 300 degrees. Just going to kind of do a stepped approach because it's possible my heat gun's not 100% accurate when it comes to the temperature as well. Oh, that's looking a little bit better. You can see it starting to liquefy there. Well, that's much better. Gonna take it slow here. Actually, I'm turning up a wee bit. Well, nope. I'll keep it on that. And we're gonna turn it up to 310. Come on. I'm going to turn up the air on it a little bit too. Makes the fan spin a little bit better and push that air out. That's looking a little better. There we go. Looking pretty goopy. Oh, there we go. That's good. Stuff is very interesting how it's working. I'm curious to see how well the connector sticks once this is all done, because it doesn't look like it's actually adhering the connector to the solder pads. So we'll see how it works. I'm definitely gonna have to let it cool down after this. Look at that corner. I'm not very good with being patient, so I'm really trying to work on that. turn it up a little bit more. We're going to try 320. You can see some of the connector pins are soldered together right now, and that's not going to be good. Makes me think I almost had too much. That bead might have been a little bit too big for this. Let's see how it goes. Still haven't gotten that corner either. There we go. Alright, I'm going to try doing something a little different. First thing I'm going to do is see if this sticks at all. Well, seems pretty solid, so that's good. I think what I'm going to try doing is putting a little bit of flux on it. Because it says it's supposed to have flux, but I'm not entirely sure how much. You can see that's still hot. I'll try. We're still sitting at 320. Got a big gloop of it right there. It's becoming liquid, that's good. It's not flowing very well though. I'll go up to 330. I think it's getting hot enough. Come on. What I may have to do is just wick up some of this solder, or run my soldering iron against it. Because I really don't want to melt this connector. I really don't. It's not really flowing. And I don't want to turn it up too much hotter, because then we get into the territory of melting the plastic. To be honest, I don't know at what temperature plastic melts, but we are going to try with the soldering iron. Very close. Very, very close. When you're working with a soldering iron, you always have to, it's called tinning the tip, because without the solder on there, the heat from the tip doesn't get transferred as efficiently. So the solder is actually what helps the heat transfer. That was why yesterday when I used the solder wick, as soon as I put the some solder on the tip of the soldering iron, then it started to wick properly. I think it was the heat wasn't transferring as easily before. I'm going to try to just drag this across. What I need to do is make sure that those connectors aren't soldered together. I'm actually going to get some solder wick. I think we just got too much. Oh. Alright, back after a little technical difficulty. Having this phone in front of me is not the easiest. And you can see that this actually adjusted. I'm not too happy about. But I'm going to put some more flux on there. I'm just going to do this old fashioned way. I do not like how that solder paste ended up turning out. I did a whole bunch of flux there. Let's see. Yeah, that's flowing much easier than it was before. Okay. Whew. Turn on the microscope here. Oops. And I'm going to look at our connections. Not too bad, really. Not too bad at all. All I got to do is test continuity between all of them, but look at this on the microscope. Every one of them looks to be connected to their solder pad and only their solder pad, which is what I wanted. So next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take alcohol wipe, Q-tip, get some alcohol on it and wipe that down, get some of the excess flux and residue off, because I'm not really sure how the solder paste what that leaves behind. Sometimes flux can cause corrosion. There's flux called no clean flux, which is what I have. And there's a solder ball right in the middle of it. I'm going to clean up this. I love this microscope because I would never, ever have seen this little guy right there. Would never seen it. So, just apply some heat. There we go. And he's gone. Couldn't see it in there, but look at a microscope. He's all good. So, those connectors, you don't need too much solder to make their connection. You don't have to have like a big ball or a big bead of it. There's at another angle I kind of tilted it. We can see that they're all connecting. So we should be in good shape. I think we did good. And I think I learned that if anything, more flux is never bad. I dare say, turn off the fan so you can kind of hear me. I dare say you can never have too much flux. I feel safe in saying that after today. The other thing I think I learned is that it's possible to have too much solder paste. So, those are my 2 lessons for the day. But, what's really cool, I did like how the solder paste worked. So we'll try it again on something else. I actually have a Sega Genesis that I need to swap out the CPU on. So we will use the solder paste for that at a later time. Definitely going to use additional flux. But what's good about this is now we're in good shape where I can actually test this. Because now this is attached. I thought this was going to be the hardest part, and it definitely was challenging, but I think it worked out better than I thought. I think what I want to do is I do want to test continuity between the inside pins and down there. Let's try that real quick. Oops. And we'll get our probes over here. Move my little fume fan. Okay. So, what I want to do is really test. So I'm testing. Actually, I need some helping hands. What I'm doing is I'm making sure these little solder pads that are on the motherboard, they're exposed a bit so that you can do these types of testing and so that you can solder to it a little bit more easily. But what's nice is you can test that your soldering job was sound, that you made good connection between that. Because if I hold the soldering pad like that, then I should be able to test the connector on the other side. And if I get one that doesn't respond on the other side, then we know we're in bad shape. And it also shouldn't pick up on any of the other ones. So, that looks, and of course sounds, very good to me. So I think we're in really good shape. It's not bad for my first ever of these kind of connectors. Learned some lessons, and later today, maybe we'll try to hook up the new membrane, and who knows, maybe by the end of the day we can test this out and see if it works. Alright, well, I have decided I want to do a test, and so we've got our connector soldered back on here, we've got our cable soldered back on, so to me, I think that's enough to do a good test on this. Now the one problem is I just dropped this, and I'm really hoping that the wires are all in good shape. I think we're okay. I'm going to feel a lot better once I actually have this in a case. But or in the shell. We're going to work with it and see what we get, see what we can do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this in here, and this is the second time I've done what I'm about to do, which is use, we've got an 18 pin connector here, which they don't sell the 19 pins, but this is a 19 pin socket that it's in. So we actually have one free pin right there. I'm not sure what it's used for, but it worked fine the last time I did this, so we're going to try it again. So now we've got our controller here. We got the PlayStation hooked up to the TV, and what we're going to try to do is plug this in here. Try to do this with one hand. Ignore the garbage full of technology stuff, and we're going to lay this down like so. And then I've also got one of the silicone pads here. Now what we should be able to see is, actually I got to flip that over for me to be able to interact with it, because I got to touch the conductive sides. All right, so we're going to power on the PS2. And I've got a free McBoot memory card here. That's what this is, which lets me go into an alternative boot environment. It lets me run games off of the hard drive that I've got loaded in the back here. Saves the disk drive. So first thing I'm going to do is we're just going to go, we're going to press this pad down here. We're going to say down. Let's see if this interacts. Oh, I have a controller. So yeah, this looks to be working pretty well. Let me try the version, maybe. Come on. There we go. Alright, you know what? I think, at least for the buttons that I've tried, that controller is working. That's awesome. So, we're in good shape. When I come back a little bit later, we're going to take this and we're going to put it back into its shell and see if we can get a fully functioning PS2 controller. Okay, we're back, and I am so ready to get this thing out of its repair bin. This PlayStation 2 controller. It's everything I work on kind of ends up in a little bin. Keeps everything organized. So I am very excited to finally get this thing off the bench. So I can finally toss that thing too. Our earlier test seemed to work flawlessly. So now the only thing left to do is to reassemble and then retest. So first thing I'm going to do is take this here, and there's some little areas in the corner that I can attach it back to. So I'm going to attach the membrane first to this plastic, I don't know what you want to call it. It's kind of like a little harness. So that goes through here first, and then I kind of take these and gently push them down. This is going to be for the shoulder buttons. And do the same thing with this one. Gently bending it over. And there's little clips here. Keep this attached. And this is pretty much all it is. It just kind of sits like this. And one of the things that I am going to have to do, which I just remembered about, is I'm going to have to resolder the the rumble motor back on, but that's okay. I can do this all, and then do that as a last step. So let's let that over to the side for a second. Put this over here, and I've already got some screws in the back of the shell. Dump these out. That. So first things first, I'm going to start putting these in. This is where those little keys come in handy. It spins around just like that. And this one goes in there. Nope. That's circle, so circle's going to go on this side. There we go. X. Try not to block your shot, but it's pretty kind of difficult here. Do all this without getting in the way. Now, where is square? Square's back in my little bin here. There's square. Next, we're going to take this, pop it right on top. Alright, next one we got is start button, select, and the analog button. Stick that in there. We've got our D-pad, which goes right in there. And we've got this little piece which sits crossways over the D-pad, which is interesting. Then we've got our D-pad silicone. Put that over there. I'm going to set this like that for a moment. I also have some joysticks. Oops, well that didn't stick to oil. Ew, those are kind of yucky. I may take those out and clean it. I know I had gotten some spares earlier, but I think I'm finally out of my spare joysticks for PS2. So maybe that'll hold it up. Yeah, it's better. I'm also going to put these. These are the shoulder buttons for 1 and 2. Those go in like that. Sometimes I find it easier to slip those in afterwards. Sometimes it's easier to put it in before. We'll see what works best this time. But the other pads I gotta do, these are the shoulder pads. We're gonna put those right here. It's kinda, I think I have it on backwards, yep. So the big part goes over the far end. And those kinda fall in line there. Trying to make sure that they're staying kind of flat. Okay, that looks pretty good. Do the next one. Flip this around. Okay, those are looking good. So, oh yeah. So this is the little slot where the rumble motors go, and this is one of the rumble motors. You got two on there, and this is the other rumble motor. I may have to look up to see which one goes on which side, because to be perfectly honest, it has been a long time since I have taken this thing apart. But what we're going to do now, I'm actually going to flip this upside down so that the shoulder buttons fall downwards. Thanks, gravity. And then see if we can insert this into there. There we go. So I'm holding that in. I can actually test out the buttons, D-pad, shoulder. That all springs up and down pretty nicely. So I feel like this is my catchphrase. We're in good shape now. I've been reviewing some of my videos after I record them, and yeah, I'm pretty sure I got a catchphrase. So that's cool. Oh yeah, one of the things that I was gonna do, set this to the side here. I was thinking about this earlier. This little boot is something that most PlayStation controllers don't have, but they went ahead and put one on there, and I don't really like it very much, and I wish I would have realized that before I soldered all this on and did the connectors, because I don't really know how well that's going to work for the tension to work. If you watch the GameCube controller video, the wire pretty much wraps around these and then goes up. So it's using tension to pull it tight so that when you yank on the cord, it doesn't yank out the connectors from the motherboard, like what would happen if this were right there. But the thing is, let me see how this even fits. Because yeah, this boot that they have on here is not going to be good. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to cut this off. I'm going to see if I can do it without cutting the rubber underneath, but I think that it's fused together. So I'm not sure how much luck I'm actually going to have here. And I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to use to do it. Got a little razor over here, though I feel like maybe a sharp pair of scissors might be better, so I can just see myself either cutting myself or slicing these cables out. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab some of my wife's crocheting scissors. They're special yarn scissors that are super dang sharp. We're going to give those a shot. Alright, we're back with some extra special yarn scissors, but check these things out. They're very sharp. That's why they have their own special little container. So they're very sharp. So I'm going to see if I can do this without trying to keep it parallel with the rest of the wire there. And also trying not to cut myself, because just because it's not a razor blade doesn't mean it's not extremely sharp, which is exactly why I bought these. Alright, I did not buy them. Exactly why I went and found them. Stole them from my wife. Oh, good news. Good news, good news, good news. That boot is not, you can see it's separated from the rest of the wire. That's great news. I'm just going to try to peel this biggest part off, and then we're going to keep cutting. I'm going to try to keep that parallel with the cord, which should hopefully mean that I'm not cutting into what is underneath. Oh, man. No pressure. Well, absolute worst case. I've crimped those connectors on once. I could do it again. I really don't want to, though. Not unless I absolutely have to. Oh, there's a good method. I'm going to really try not to cut myself here. But if I go in and keeping parallel with the rest of the wires, alright, we're getting there. Slow and steady wins the race. Good. Alright, only got a little bit more to go. Got one more. Don't mess it up. And don't cut myself. Well, that was close. But I came out with no cuts, and on me, nor on the wire. Well, that was probably one of the most stressful things I've done recently. And I'm definitely going to try to be a little bit more safer if I ever try to attempt one of those things, because that thing almost went. I'm going to have to watch on the video in slow motion, see how close I actually was. Or maybe I won't. That might just stress me out more. So, next step. Now that we've got that together, I'm going to put these on, at least temporarily, but I'm totally going to wash them, because they're kind of gross. And, of course, you all know probably by now where I could get a spare set of them for pretty cheap. I'll give you a hint. Starts with an A, ends with AliExpress. So, what we're going to do, I'm going to try to do this very gently. So this is how the wire fits in here. So it comes down, and it bends, and it goes into these little channels, like so. Shoot, that wire, the rubber kind of got opened up there, but we will find out if that is an issue or not in a little while. So next thing I do is try to fit this in without messing up our wires. Okay, I think we're in good shape. Oof, that's a little tight. I almost feel like I should have gone the opposite way on those wires because they're bent the other way. Other thing is that going to get covered up? We're going to see how this looks here. So, if I were to put this on, okay. Didn't seem, it's not going to cause an issue with my wires over there. Sometimes when you put on the back of the case, you gotta watch out for what's over here because it might end up messing it up. So, next thing I'm gonna do is, I probably should have done this first. I almost feel like, yep, get a better angle here. Try not to, really gonna try not to mess this one up. Load it from the other way. Okay, they're fitted in there. Nope. And our L1 button fell off. That's okay. So we can snap it back in. Or slide it back in, depending on how. Some of them have better luck snapping them back in. Other times I just feel like I'm going to break it when I do that. Alright. Well, I hope that's enough connection in there. I think that's as good as I'm going to get. Close this up with the remaining few screws I've got in there. One screw there. One screw here. This one I'm pretty sure I do have all the screws, by the way. They're just in the, yeah, they're hiding out in here in the little tray that I've been storing this thing in for a couple months now. But I'm not going to put all of them in yet because I want to test it, and I am going to first off replace these. Oh, those are kind of nice. Maybe I'll just clean them. I'm gonna have to reset the L2 and LR buttons. Those ones I should have known better. I'll show you what I have to do with these. They're kind of weird. I'm gonna take it apart real quick. I'm just going to check on my wires too and make sure that those look okay and that they didn't get crushed or anything. take this out. My wire still looks really good, so I'm happy about that. But what I gotta do is push these through. Just kind of push them, and that's it. And then what happens is these puppies will get bent up. Sorry, let me show you what I was talking about there. These pads here for the L2. That was a screw that fell out. Yep. So these pads for the L2, they end up getting like pushed up, bunched up like that, unless you put the button in after the fact. I'm gonna screw this together. Do a quick inventory of screws too. 1, 2, 3, and I have 1, 2, 2 over there, and I probably have a spare one floating around. A lot of these, when I bought them secondhand, they didn't end up coming with all the screws too. So, but in order to get these back in, you shove them over there, and just push, and now it actually gives a. It was very squishy before. I don't think it was making enough contact, but now, beautiful. So this works. This thing looks pretty darn nice. So I'm gonna go boot up the PS2 and fire up some Grand Theft Auto 3, because that one I know what all the buttons do, so we'll be able to test it pretty easily. We'll see how we work. It's crazy how light this thing feels with nothing there. Oh, got the analog light. That's good. That works. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna launch. Oh, actually that was the wrong one, I think. I haven't booted up to this one in a while. We're gonna reset. I think I actually need to open PS Loader or something like that. Open PS Loader. So load our drive. And we're gonna pick Grand Theft Auto 3. Like I said, this one, I used to play a lot of this as a kid, so I know all the controls and buttons for it. Now, the one thing that I don't have right now, and this is so weird without these rumble motors, it feels so light, but I'm gonna have to make sure I come back and solder those on and retest it with the rumble motor, because that's a vital part of the experience, at least for me. I remember that always being super key to the experience. And we'll skip the cutscene. Then we get to the burning car. Famous scene. Alright, let's try analog. No sticky. I can run, I can jump, I can punch, I can get in the car. I can brake. I can change the radio. Alright. Let's see. Start button. Yep, start button works. Select works, and I think we're in good shape. We're looking good. Oh, so the phone's falling down, but that's perfect timing anyway. I think we're good. Time to put the rumble motors back on. All right. Well, I've taken our back part, and we are going. I took the joysticks off. I'm gonna go wash those. I could probably do it while I'm putting these back on, but right now I'm going to do the rumble motors. Soldering iron warming up. What I first need to do is I got to strip these wires. So I guess I need something to be able to attach it to. And first thing I'm going to do is come over here to the wire strippers and probably strip off a generous amount of some wire. Alright, about like that. That should be plenty of wire to be able to attach it. We'll do both of these about the same length. Well, 8 wire strippers. Okay, well, that's about good enough for that one. I gotta do this one. I think it's interesting that they got red and black on one, and red and white on the other. All right, that one should be good. And next one should be good. Okay, so I got them stripped. Next thing we're gonna do, I already got the soldering iron warmed up. I'm gonna put this in. I'm gonna put the big one on the right hand side, or what will be the right hand side, and try to fit that. Try to get this in before I have it soldered, or else it's gonna be a little bit more difficult to do once I have it in. And make sure those wires are good. And I'm going to take my soldering iron. And I don't have my fume hood. I'm just going to do this the old-fashioned way. And just hold my breath. Those of you watching at home, you can probably guess the one thing I forgot to do, oops, other than knock over my phone, is flux. Put a dab over there too. Try this again. Okay, well, that is good enough right now. And then we're gonna drop this guy in there. Already got the flux. I'm actually gonna spin this around so it's a little easier. Some solder. Alright, I think that's good. Should be good to go. I'm actually gonna take this over to the, I don't need to use analog sticks in order to test this out. So we're gonna put the shell back on and then go over and test it real quick. Alright, back with the PlayStation 2 controller to finish it out. I cleaned these joysticks off. I think they turned out pretty well. And they're actually grippy again, which is nice. They're grippy but not sticky. I've had a few where the silicone has actually started to decay. I don't know what to actually call it, but the silicone here, or that maybe it's just rubber because I haven't experienced it with real silicone, but it starts to get sticky and wet and it kind of leaks, and that's not fun. So we are going to remove the screws from here. Make sure this is my Phillips head screwdriver. We're going to remove the screws. Hopefully this will be the last time that we break this thing open, and once we get it all together, hopefully everything just continues to work, and then maybe we can put it together with a system. So we'll take that off. Got our rumble motors installed there, so what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to have to take these out, which is unfortunate, but we're going to take them out because I have to lift the system board, so I'm very gently going to move these because now I have to lift this out here. I'm trying to do this with a little impact to the rest of the system as possible. Okay, and we'll get that back in there, and then we'll get these also back in there. What I gotta make sure to do is make sure that this wire goes down under there, kind of gets held down here so that it's not crushed when I try to put the case on it. For this one, I'm just gonna leave it crossing over here because I don't believe we have a contact point, but let me just double check. Yeah, we should be safe there. Looks like these little squares here, or circles here, are the only contact points as I can see. They're right there on the case, on the back shell. The other thing I'm going to do is get my shoulder button, and we will insert that on this side. Those are both good. That's inserted there. We'll leave the R2 and L2s alone for now. And while we put our screws back in, okay. One thing I've noticed is that with the rumble motors back in their home, it's gotten a little bit tighter to put together, which I know I'm not a big fan of, because that usually makes me think that something's getting pinched, like wires. But I've looked in there a couple of times. It seems like everything's okay. I think it might just be that the rumble motors aren't seated in exactly as they were before, so there's that foam grip, or foam, I don't know what you want to call it. There's foam on the outside of the rumble motor that kind of keeps it secured and in position on its little holder, and there's indentations from where it used to sit for however many years. I think these is from like, what, 2002 or something like that. So there's indentations for it sitting for that long of time, and I have a feeling that I probably just didn't put it back in exactly as it was supposed to. It's entirely possible that I also have the rumble motors on opposite sides from where they used to be. Like, the right might be flip-flopped to the left, but that's how it is. And how it looks right now, I'm going to leave it because it's working fine. Now, I actually have some spare screws over here. So I've taken apart a number of PlayStation 2 controllers, and I believe this is the same as what I have over there. So we're gonna put this one in. Yep, that's the same type of screw. I'll double check. They look very similar, but I'm getting a little bit more resistance down there, so I really want to make sure that they are in fact the same. And gotta get close up here. You'll forgive me if I thought they were the same, but they are in fact very slightly different. So, guess I won't be using that. Man, all I need is different threading, so, well, it is what it is. Put this back in. Good news is those trying to thread in that little screw shouldn't affect the, if I do find a screw and try to put it in there, it won't affect it. But I've got screws on either side. I've got them on all four corners and right here. That really should be plenty to be able to use this. The last thing I'm going to do before we go and test it one final time is I'm going to push these in. Alright, I'm going to go test it, and we'll see how it goes. We have liftoff. We have successfully resurrected this PlayStation 2 controller, which has been through quite a lot. So in its time since I've had it, I disassembled it and scavenged its cable for another controller. And because I knew that the membrane was bad, it was soldered on, and my plan at the time was, well, I'm not going to solder on a new membrane, so I'm just going to try to scrap it, use it for parts. So I took the cable off, used it elsewhere, and it's been sitting in a bin for a couple of months now, and just finally got up the gumption to find a new cable. Had to go through the path of finding the crimp connectors to put on the cable. I'll remind you, it's these here. Found these and finally found them, and then had to go through the routine of getting a new tool for the new pieces, as always the case. So I got my new crimper and was able to crimp the cables, put them into the connector, solder the connector onto the board. I had to cut that dang boot off, which is a silly thing to include on something that doesn't originally have a boot. And then the fun part was soldering the new connector on and putting the new membrane in. And after cleaning it up, this thing works flawlessly. So I'm very, very happy with how it turned out. And now I can either use it in my system or include it in one of the other ones that I'm trying to sell. So enjoy. See you next time.